Welcome to God Friday Discussions. As we embark on this journey together, it's important to acknowledge the diversity of thoughts, beliefs, and opinion and experiences that each of us brings to the table. Our discussions are rooted in a spirit of exploration, learning, and mutual respect. The views expressed are those of the individual participants and are presented for the purpose of open dialogue and personal reflection. Please note, we recognize and honor the freedom of personal belief. This platform does not advocate for any singular viewpoint as the absolute authority on spiritual matters. Our discussions are intended as a safe space for sharing and growth. We encourage you to approach each session with an open heart and mind, but also respect your personal boundaries. If at any point you find the content not to your liking or comfort, you are free to disengage as you see fit. While we seek to provide enriching content, participation is entirely voluntary. We assume no responsibility for any personal decisions or interpretations made in response to our discussions. Our aim is to foster a community where curiosity, faith, and understanding can flourish. Thank you for joining us on this journey. And this week's topic. Nice, thank you, Matt. For this week's topic, we'll be discussing miracles. Hit the sound again.
Save me, Jeebus!
Yes. And there's I think for something that was kind of interesting when I inquired with ChatGPT on the subject.
ChatGPT.
Yeah. It was I was asking about miracles and for like all the religions. And what was kind of interesting was that Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, they kind of there's sort of implied proof for the legitimacy of the prophets or something like that. There's a proof factor involved with miracles. And then
Yeah. So not. Sorry. Go
well,
ahead, bro.
real fast. And then and again, this is ChatGPT. This isn't like saying like, oh, this is how it is. This is ChatGPT's guess at how it is. And then for Buddhism and Sikhism, the miracles were performed, but um, Buddha said to uh, Buddha emphasized that they should not be the basis of one's faith. Instead, the focus should be on personal insight and understanding. Are seen as an
Yeah.
expression of the enlightened state rather than proof of divinity. So I thought that was kind of an interesting contrast when it comes to miracles.
That's kind of the dimension I was going for as well, right? So when you look up like earlier translations of like the miracles you're speaking of, you know what I mean? Moses, for example, I would similarly revert back to Moses, right? So Moses, we talk about the incident at the Red Sea, right? So I call it the incident because everybody likes to say parting, but the actual verbiage, I believe, and I wish Stephanie was here because she'd probably confirm it. The actual verbiage wasn't parting. I don't think that word was even an actual word in Hebrew. The word was the ground dried, right?
Mm.
So the ground dried and they walked across it. Does that like negate that it was actually a miracle? In my opinion, no. So too often we look at, my opinion, God as a genie, where we want him to perform this miracle all of a sudden, right? And I think your brother, he did a good presentation on it one day. There's at a certain point, there's a point of no return, like, right? To an extent. If you smoke your whole life, you might end up with cancer, right? May or may not end up with cancer, you know? And once you get it and it's so bad, it's not like, hey, God, now give me a miracle now, even though I, didn't do what I was supposed to do my whole life. But now I want you to save me, you know? And I'm not saying that God can't and won't do that, but to expect him to do it on the premise of you believing in him is kind of what you're talking about. It's probably poor practice, you know? So when we talk about miracles, we can't. Sometimes the miracle itself isn't as miraculous as we think. You know what I mean? Like I said, like childbirth to me is a miracle. I don't know how people feel about that, but when we really think about what goes on inside of this woman, like there's this living, breathing entity that's constantly growing, and a woman really, literally pushes it out and gives life, and the woman can sustain life. That child can sustain life with just that woman for, years.
And actually,
Like you don't even need a man
small,
present.
I'm gonna be annoying and one technical detail there. The child isn't breathing when they're in the womb. Their first breath actually happens when they're given birth to, and it actually changes it like something happens there and they take their first breath when they're actually given birth it's given.
Well, it's breathing off of the lungs of the woman, I guess I would say, right? So
Yeah,
we could
something I
whatever
yeah,
you
whatever however they
the,
it's probably
the umbilical cord,
the blood
obviously,
is
right?
shared or something, right? So the blood gets
Yeah. Well, the
oxygenated.
food, everything, whatever the woman eats, the child eats, there's just this miracle performing inside, and that itself is a miracle,
Yeah.
Sometimes a miracle isn't as like it's miraculous, like you gotta have this mountain just move or the ground shake, Sometimes it was maybe the miracle was you drove through like this intersection and didn't get hit by any car because you blew a red light, you know what I mean? Because you weren't paying attention or something or other, so the idea that you said that basing the premise of your faith on the miraculous is a horrible practice, because what happens when the miraculous doesn't happen? Are you still going to be faithful,
Sure. Yeah.
So who said that? That was Buddhist? That was Buddhist? That was Buddhism that you said that?
Yeah, Buddhism or Buddha was said something like he emphasized that they should not be Buddha performed miracles, but he often emphasized that they should not be the basis for faith.
Yep. I think that's an actual solid statement, even from a Christian perspective, not just any, not just from a Buddhist perspective. Yeah, like don't base your faith just on the premise of the miraculous. The miraculous is just more evidence, right? That you have these documented events throughout all history. Some people negate this, but the Bible is a book of history, right? See, these are history books written by people who were probably passing down story to story. Not saying necessarily they were eyewitness testimonies, but they were documented, I guess I'll say. So, yeah, I like that idea, man. And to assume that just a miracle is this like divine intervention every day, like I think it's not a good practice. Like there's so many miracles we should be happy about.
And can we define miracle real fast?
Oh yeah, yes, sir.
I
Are
asked
you gonna define it,
ChatGPT.
or you want me to define it?
I could define it. I asked
I
ChatGPT.
figured that.
It gave me four different definitions. So the Oxford English Dictionary states that a miracle is an extraordinary and welcome event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws. It is therefore attributed to a divine agency. Merriam-Webster defines it as an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs, an extremely outstanding or unusual event, thing, or accomplishment. Cambridge Dictionary defines it as an unusual and mysterious event that is thought to have been caused by a god because it does not follow the usual laws of nature. and theological perspective. I
Well,
don't know why it's giving me that definition. In religious contexts, a miracle is often viewed as a sign or wonder brought about by the intervention of a supernatural power, typically God. For instance, in Christianity, miracles performed by Jesus, such as healing the sick or turning water into wine, are seen as signs of his divine authority. So, how does that go for you? Sit
yeah,
with you?
I could see how. Well, I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that definition of it. I think when we make something, because number one, God's in control of everything, right? So if we're just gonna say the miraculous is the only thing that's like great, what about the day-to-day stuff, right? Like, there's so many things that we should be thankful for that didn't happen, or maybe there's miracles going on that you don't even know. Like, for example, I saw this video, put it in perspective. The guy said during 9/11, they gave a story of about 8 different people, okay? One person was on their way to work and was stuck in traffic, right? Was late to work, right? One person it was their day to buy coffee for the their crew or their workmates, whatever we want to call it. One person actually their alarm clock like didn't go off and they woke up late. Um, there was like a few other stories. The premise of it is that sometimes when you're stuck in traffic, don't be upset. Been somewhere you weren't supposed to be. Just keep this in mind. Give a moment if you're just trusting God, trusting in the divine, His divinity. You're exactly where you need to be at every single moment. So when you're stuck in traffic, and I struggle with this because I hate being in traffic, bro. I hate crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some accident you're avoiding. Maybe there's something you're avoiding, you know. Maybe there's something that you're not supposed to be at, you know. Or maybe there's something that you're being delayed that you run into somebody that you would have never ran into otherwise. So when we put our trust in, I guess, the divine and understand you're exactly where you need to be at any given moment, like you could see what I would say the miraculous happen. For example, you're looking for a job and you're in a hurry to a job interview, right? Because you got stuck in traffic. Well, maybe you meet somebody while you're stuck in traffic. You know what I mean? It gives you the job that you were. To me, that's just say that only the extraordinary is like miraculous about the day-to-day things every day that add up to something even bigger. Don't know if I made much sense there.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Um, like there could be miracles in more trivial things in life, like being stuck in traffic. And say you're, going somewhere and then because you were stuck in traffic, you met someone that created a whole relationship or option to do something that's, completely, you know, out of there that's super awesome. I don't know. There's a lot of different um uh there's a lot going on at any particular moment that we're just not aware of. So it's um there could be some miracles going on right now, like the second that
Well, so
that maybe we're not even
yeah,
acknowledging.
so what yeah. So what scripture teaches us is that there is like a battle going on around us all the time. And we don't really know because all we can see is this corporal reality, right? That our world, what we see it, you know, the physical realm. We can't really see what's going on in the spiritual behind us, you know. So something could be preventing us from, maybe there's some opposing force that wants us to be somewhere we're not supposed to be. And a lot of times we know where we're not supposed to be, and we still do it anyway, right? Times like maybe you think you're supposed to be somewhere, and there's a extraordinary setback behind the scenes that you can't really explain. Hey, let's just say you had a job interview, you get up early, you get dressed, you iron your clothes, you eat a good meal, you're in the mirror practicing your questions, doing everything you're supposed to do. You leave an hour and a half early and your car breaks down, right? That could be a miracle, man.
And
So
then
the next time when somebody thinks that, gosh,
um we got a good amount of delay, so it's gonna be a little tricky. But I like what you brought up about the physical versus spiritual kind of realms, because that's actually what I was chatting with Nathan about the topic of miracles. And in Baha'i, it's a little bit on the Buddhist viewpoint, in that you shouldn't take physical manifestations of things as all that important, and it's more about the spiritual transformations that take place. That's the real miracles. So I'll read you a little bit of what Abdulbaha says on miracles, and this is kind of a summary.
oh, that's my guy, Abdulbaha. I know him.
Yeah, man, Abdul-Baha. So he was Baha'u'llah's son, and Baha'u'llah is like the main writer for the Baha'i religion, something like that. Sorry, Nathan, if I'm not getting that quite right. Um, but
Nathan will correct it later. It's all.
yeah, yeah. So holy manifestations are sources of miracles. Holy manifestations being like Jesus or Muhammad. Um, um, difficult. So yeah, difficult or impossible things for these people are actually like super easy and trivial. Like it's it's uh it's different when you're kind of like operating at that next dimensional level or something like that. Um, if we consider miracles proofs, they are only proof for those who are present, and it's not really proof for someone who wasn't
Mm,
actually there. And if the basis of faith is a miracle through a certain teacher, then one must accept the miracles from other teachers as well. So when you accept like one miracle, you kind of have to accept them in their entirety from many different people. Um, Christ himself was a miracle by uplifting the standard of God in his time, even though he was crucified. So a lot of people will say like, oh, Christ healed people, he brought sight to the blind and stuff like that. But another way to think about this sort of miracle is a spiritual uplifting. So rather than like maybe people are blind physically, like people are blind spiritually, and Christ would actually help them see spiritually rather than physically. So that's kind of more of a miracle, maybe. Um, and miracles are of no particular importance for people who know the truth. Miracles refer more to spiritual transformation than physical, so that's kind of, and spiritual eternal life rather than physical temporary life. So our spiritual life is forever. It's eternal, but our physical life is just, it's here and then it's not here. And
yeah, it
physical is
expires
not as
eventually,
important
right?
as spiritual qualities. And a way Abdul Baha puts it, it's like lighting a candle versus the light of the sun. So the candle can go out and you can relight it. The sun is an eternal light that is always shining. And so that's kind of like a spiritual versus physical realm. Um, how you can like understand miracles through rather than physical, more of a spiritual type miracle.
So another thing about Jesus being a miracle is one thing you didn't identify within himself. Um, a lot of people even negate that, you know. So back to the miracle talk in general. I was kind of getting into this Moses thing earlier, where I watched quite a few discussions on the incident at the Red Sea, let's call it. So to the Hebrews, call it Yam Soph is the actual verbiage for the Red Sea, would actually mean Sea of Reeds. So it wasn't actually Red Sea. So there's this debate that the actual Red Sea that we know water, if it's not the actual Red Sea and it's some other body of water that's significantly smaller and significantly more shallow, this person was kind of negating the whole the miraculous of the parting of the Red Sea or the ground drying, whatever. So let's just even say it was a different body of water, right? And Egypt was chasing the Israelites. They were leaving Egypt, and they get to this body of water, and the ground is dry. The water's completely gone. And even if there's a scientific explanation for it, such as the wind blew this water because it's 70-mile-an-hour gusts, and then it can blow it miles and miles and create this water that is dry for enough time for them. Does that make the story less miraculous?
No, because where did the wind come from? The timing is uncanny.
There's some, you're right. So that's the point. Is the person was trying to dismiss the fact that the water was still gone, but because it wasn't this miraculous, like the waves, they were walking through the waves on this side of them, and that it wasn't actually a miracle. So that's why I say when we think of miracles, we can't just think of them as this extraordinary event. Maybe there is a scientific explanation of it, but like you said, the timing was just too coincidental, man. You know, how could that have been the exact timing that they're fleeing, that ground was dried? We're dismissing that God made that happen for them. So to me, whether it was the Red Sea or whether it was another body of water, it doesn't dismiss the fact that this timing was so perfect, and that I would say it's a miracle. How much of a delay is there?
Probably like 5 seconds or so, or maybe 3 seconds.
Okay, just making sure it's not that bad.
It's actually
Yeah.
changing. It's like getting more or
So
less.
the whole yeah, I think it's internet and see God or not God, the adversary doesn't want us to have this conversation, you know, but we're gonna continue. We're gonna make it happen. There's a spiritual battle going on right now about us having this conversation, you know. And God's gonna win. Sorry, devil, you're gonna lose this one. So yeah, that's kind of my take, is that we can't just assume that because something wasn't extraordinary that it wasn't a miracle. Like this, if we're basing our faith, and that was a good statement you brought up, if we're basing our faith 100% on like something being extraordinary, miraculous, then most of the time people are going to be disappointed and be like, "Oh, look, your God he's really real, right?" Well, what if he was preventing you from getting into something you weren't supposed to do? Like what if that was the intent? Was you're supposed to be going through what you're going through? You know. So I don't know what you think, man.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think miracles can be extraordinary, or they can just it really, I guess it kind of like it's kind of an eye of the beholder type thing. Like, because one thing I remember from watching there was like this show back when I was like a kid on like ABC or something, and it was like what if I remember the theme song to the show was like, "What if God was one of us?" But like a part that I always remember is like the girl like asked the guy who is supposedly God or Jesus or something like that, um, like to perform a miracle, and then the guy was like, "Look right there," and then he gestured towards a tree, and I was like, "Oh snap, that was a good point." So like even things like I mean human giving birth or just like a tree that is living a living thing that stays there and grows over time, like that's a miracle.
Well, here I think of a miracle like this, right? It's a miracle. My family's still together. It's a miracle that I'm still walking, that I'm still breathing. How many times I put myself in positions that were 100% my fault, and there were consequences to be paid, but out of that mess, God still made something good out of it. You know what I mean? That's a
Mm,
miracle. And yeah, that's all I can explain. That's a miracle. Not like, oh, well, God didn't move this tree out of my way so I couldn't crash into it. Well, maybe you should have steered better. Uh, Too often we blame God things when go bad. We blame God when things go bad, and maybe He has a plan for that thing going bad, or maybe it was you doing something you weren't supposed to be doing. But what about when something good happens? Why don't we give Him the credit for that? You know, and there's a lot of good that's happened, I'm sure, to yourself and myself that we can't take credit for because if I would have continued to do things my way, I don't know where I'd be. So just just funneling miracles down to this extraordinary event, like there's miracles every day. Just look around you, like you said, look at a tree. I mean, look at if you got kids, look at your kids. You got a wife, look at your wife. Your family. You have a job. Maybe you don't think of these things as extraordinary because we're so used to them and we're like entitled. But let's go to like Africa. I mean, we know, me and you and myself, we interact with people from Africa, and they would kill to be in our positions. You know what I mean? So being in what we've done throughout all of our experience, we've interacted with quite a different types of cultures, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that would love to be in our positions. So
definitely.
yeah, count your miracles. Yeah, count your miracles is just everything you have.
And another thing I wanted to kind of that was a cool thing that it was about Baha'i something Baha'i prayer or something, but basically what I remember from it is that when bad things do happen to us, um it's good to actually thank God for that because those bad things are actually God's mercy on you. Which was like,
That's a very Christian principle too.
yeah, yeah, and it feels like it can be a little hardcore because like, sometimes maybe someone in your family is sick or a friend, and um that experience can be very terrible, but somehow it's God's mercy on you. And
Well,
um because like I don't know, it could be worse, right? Like maybe it could be a worse disease or you're sick yourself or something like that.
so I try my best, and I struggle with a lot, obviously, but I try my best to like not attribute God to everything. So I think of things like this, like when when like when kids are when kids are molested or something like that, right? I don't attribute that to God, right? But I do believe God was there present while it was happening too. And like God saw what happened, and God was angry as well, and God was hurt as well. You know what I mean? So like when things are really, really bad, like I don't always just say like, it's the work of God. Because that's a tough thing to, and maybe this is just my personal opinion, and maybe this is just how I view it to cope with things myself. I don't know. But like when things go bad, I don't necessarily, well, God does everything for a reason, because I don't believe that. I don't believe that children get molested for a reason. I don't believe that, you know, children get murdered for a reason. I don't believe that. I think sometimes things happen, and it's our will as human beings, and as human beings, in my belief, and I know not everybody agrees with me, we're just inherently rebellious, and I would say evil, but I think people would disagree with me on using the word evil, but they would agree with the same thought process. Just God doesn't sanction everything per se, but He's there present. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a mind fuck because like these terrible things happen, um and it's hard, like how could a God, like that's a huge reason people don't believe in God, is how can God, who's all powerful, allow these terrible things to happen? So yeah, I mean, you like from my perspective or my understanding is that God does not, like, I guess sanction. I guess God, like I would say God does allow these things to happen, but God doesn't think of it as um horrible, or not necessarily how we would physically think about it. Um
So, so I agree with you.
yeah.
I think maybe what you're trying to say is, all right, this is my outlook on it. Sometimes it's not the work of God, it's the work of man, and man has free will, right? Um, there's no, if I want to go out and murder somebody, I don't need to go pray to God to go murder somebody, right? I literally have the capacity to go and do that. If I want to go out and do something great, I don't need to pray to God to do something great. I literally have the capacity to do that. So we have free will here, right? So when it comes to God, like there's the Satan, the adversary, and there's God, right? There's these two opposing forces, and they're playing chess. And God's just a little better at it. And Satan will be like, hey, I got you in check, and he's like, You thought you did, and then bang, checkmate. Satan's mad again. You know, just when when the adversary thinks that they defeated you, like we mentioned last week in the last episode, sometimes you think you're defeated and you're buried 6 feet deep and you're under there. Well, you're not buried, man. You're just planted now, and like that seed is about to spring, and from that unfortunate event, God is going to make a testimony on him that might lead, 1,000 more people to him and advance his agenda. And Satan's like, shit, not again. So a lot of times I'll hear it out of Christians too that, well, everything happens for a reason. And I don't believe that. I'm sorry. I don't believe everything happens for a reason. I think everything happens and God uses whatever happens, no matter how it happens, to advance his agenda. He's that good at chess that he knows how to do it. So this thought that, well, God let that happen. No. I say this, God saw what happened too, and God was hurt too, and he's upset by what happened too, so yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, that I I'd agree with that. Yeah. But so getting back to
Yeah, so
miracles, what is there a miracle that you have witnessed or experienced in your life?
um this might be a little controversial.
Excellent.
Right up our alley.
Ah, you were killing it with the sounds, yeah.
So why don't we use these more? We got to use these more.
I know we gotta.
So one of the first churches I used to go to, that's where I found, I guess I would say, my salvation at. I fell off a few times afterwards. Yeah. Shout out to Road to Life Church. We're not there anymore. We moved on, but my family's together because of that place, so I always have the utmost respect for that place. But we used to go to these groups. One of the spiritual fathers I had there would host these groups, and at the end they would have these prayer sessions. And in one of those groups, I've seen this is where it's going to get really controversial, but I've seen a woman who was in a relationship with another woman repent of that relationship because she felt that much conviction. Hey, guys, shh, go over there. Yeah, but she felt that much conviction that she actually repented of it, and So when we say things like, "This is who I am," no, that's not who you are. We are who God says we are, right? So, and there's laws and guidelines that God instructs us to prevent us from actually damning ourselves, I guess I would say. And when we say things like, "Oh, this is who I am," well, if I'm an alcoholic, right, and you see me passed out on the ground, I would expect you to tell me like, "Hey, man, you got to get your act together." No, not like, "Oh, no, he was born that way, so you just gotta. It's okay. You gotta accept it how he is," And maybe people feel that that's a harsh analogy. I don't make the rules. I'm sorry, man. Believe me, there's a lot of things I have to fight and still repent of myself. And I guess I'm not any better, man, because I know sometimes I'm wrong and I still do things. But yeah. So I guess that was it. Yeah, I've seen people give up their lifestyle for God.
That's huge.
So that might be controversial. Yeah, definitely. It might be controversial, but So when I hear people, oh, like, oh, that's not a real thing, I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it. I've seen somebody. I've seen one person that was, I would say, possessed. I don't know if we call that a miracle, but probably the opposite of a miracle, right? Which would, if evil exists, that means God has to exist too, right?
I guess so. I don't know.
What about you? Have you ever seen a miracle?
Well, let me think. Um, I guess, um, I'd say for me, there's a lot of like miracles I've experienced that's been more on like maybe not maybe not quite the rank of miracle, but more of just like timing coincidences and stuff like that. And like, or just meeting, just meeting someone who you wouldn't expect to meet there, or someone you know at a place that you would never expect to meet someone you knew. Um, another, like, so one of my miracles that's more of like a classic physical manifestation miracle is, and it may not, but is I had this milk in my fridge, and milk goes bad after a certain amount of time, but the milk that this milk for some reason turned into yogurt, and it was really good, and I ate it like it was yogurt.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. One of my neighbors walked up. Everybody's interested
I
in
saw you go
what it
having
is
a
that we're.
side conversation here while we're talking about miracles. Does your neighbor want to
No, no,
chirp in
definitely.
or?
You definitely, man. You're more than welcome, man. You know.
Hey, thanks, I got it.
He wants to walk his dog, man.
Yeah.
So every Friday, 6 p.m. we're on this, man.
All
Our
right,
time.
what's the name
Oh,
of the channel?
nice.
This is on Peace Ants Academy.
Just peas ants. Ants with a Z.
Peace Ants with a Z. You don't have Twitter or anything, do you?
I have Instagram,
You got an Instagram, Raj?
There's a peas ants on Instagram. I
YouTube.
haven't been posting the God Friday discussions
Oh,
to it
here.
though.
Or
I
YouTube,
should.
yeah, YouTube. Peace Ants on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's interested. Raj, like, everybody. He walked by. He's like, "Are you streaming?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And you were. I didn't want to interrupt you and be rude, but yeah, everybody's interested. Larry was here. He was, So
Peace, like peace,
yeah, peace.
and
ANTZ.
oh,
Ants. Yeah. Instead of like piss ants, he says peace ants.
It's funny watching you
That was the
explain
play.
it because like that's what I have to do too. It's like peace, yeah, like peace, and then ANTZ,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
peasants.
like
oh, okay.
oh, is that what okay. That is a
There's layers to peace ants.
if you want, man, put your number in there, bro. I'll send you the links right now, bro. But yeah, Raj, I had a feeling something was gonna go on like this tonight, man. Honestly did. For some
Go on
reason.
like what?
Just people were gonna be interested in what it is that we're doing, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like at the corner store, I told the cashier at the corner store about it, and he was
Gotcha.
interested. I wonder if he's checked it out yet.
Adrian Gutierrez?
Rodriguez.
I got a Gutierrez in here. Hold up, man. Adrian. ROD. Hold on, Raj. We gotta get it. We got another.
Another speaker, another God Friday discusser.
Yeah, I'm gonna send him the link and see if he ever wants to come in, man. We're here
All right, yeah, sounds good.
Heck
No
yeah.
problem, bro.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Awesome.
See you guys later.
Later,
See
man.
ya.
Pretty cool, man.
Yeah, that's
There we
cool.
go, Raj. So Yeah, back on the miracles talk, right? It was interesting, like how we downplay like certain things sometimes as like because it's not like this extraordinary event, you know. Like I said, I don't necessarily like the concept that um, the miraculous is just as if it's not something like a no way, I don't believe it, like, you know, then it's not a miracle. You know what I mean? Or if it's something that could even be explained by science, all of a sudden it's not a miracle. Like we said, the timing of the Red Sea incident, right? Like how could that not be uh how could that not be a miracle, you know? And if you can, send me your Discord link in the chat. Just so I can send it to him, Raj. Sorry everybody. We got people interested. Yeah, let's not downplay how many great things have happened that have prevented us from like our own demise. You know what I mean? Like you say yourself, like you struggle with marijuana right now, right? It's something you struggle with, you know. And you talk. I wouldn't talk about it if you hadn't talked about it in
I'm
here.
struggling more with the nicotine now, but yeah, still both. Still dabbling.
So I mean, I was gonna go with that, man. But if you overcome that, I think that's a miracle within itself, you know. And I think a way to actually overcome it, Raj, would be what you fill yourself with, right? Like we all have a void, and sometimes that void we fill it with. Some people fill it with drugs. Some people fill it with sex. Some people fill it with alcohol. Some people fill it with, you know, sports, or they fill it with something. We all have this something we're trying to fill, and I think you use it as like this. You might have said this, like this endless quench that we can't quench. It's like you're filling the cup up with the hole in the bottom, and like you fill the cup up and then it just drains out. Well, you fill it back up and then it just drains out. And I think the only thing that you can fill it with, that you can fill that void with, is God. You know, and that would be a miracle if people would realize that, you know. But I'm a firm believer there's miracles that happen every single day. Sometimes we just dismiss like how big that thing actually was, you know. Sorry, Raj. Trying to make this happen. There we go. All right, I'm done playing with my phone now. Sorry, I promise I'm done playing with my phone now. I had to send that out. But yeah, you ever watch that movie? I don't remember what one it was, but they were talking about, once again, Moses, right? In Egypt, when Moses was leading the Israelites out of Egypt, like there was plagues, there was these locusts, there was all these things, and this woman had a scientific explanation for why all these things happen. So how can it be God then? But like you said, the timing of it, you know? How could it be that all these things happen during the way Moses said they would happen, and the timing of it happened like at the exact same time, you know? It's too coincidental. So to dismiss it, like even if there's a scientific explanation, it's still, how could we say, you know, it's not a miracle, you know?
Yeah, and even in science, like science for gravity, for instance, like Richard Feynman said something that was kind of funny in one of his lectures. Uh, Richard Feynman's like a famous physicist guy, and
Uh-huh.
he was talking about how gravity, when we first came up with the idea of gravity, we had like the moon with like the idea of angels carrying it, around us sideways, and that was like a long time ago. But now in modern science, we have angel wings. We still have angel wings flying these celestial bodies around, but they're just facing a different direction because that's the gravitational pull or whatever. So,
Well, I just think so when I hear things like that, I just think science is finally explaining God, right? Not that science is defying God or science is like
well,
disproving anything like that.
I think science is definitely more on the physical side, like because we have this kind of contrast of spiritual and physical, and science is more on the like it's trying to analyze physical phenomena, but it it does it in a way that is not um ideally not outcome driven. It's more based on repetition and um repeatability. So it's not like, oh, this happened one time, therefore this is like true, and this does this, and it's the truth, the absolute truth. It's more like, oh, this seems to be happening over and over, and so this seems to be right. But in science, there's no like the closest thing to absolute truth is like theory, like the theory of relativity or the theory of um I don't know what else is there. So, but even theory is like doesn't say absolute truth. Theory is more like
You're
just
right.
something that's happened so many times we can pretty much rely on that to be the case.
Yeah. So with science, my understanding is there's a hypothesis, right? And that for science to be proven as fact, you come up with this hypothesis, right? And you challenge it to the laws of nature, and then you keep challenging it until that thing aligns with nature, and then you find like the definitive. I think is how it works, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe in a dumb way of putting it, right? And
No, it's not dumb. And also like I would disagree with like the idea of a fact. Like I think the whole idea of science is that like yes, there's facts and like this happened, that happened, but there's no like I think the cool thing about science is that it's not super sure of itself. It gets proven wrong over and over and over again. That's what evolves science over time.
yeah, I could see that. Um, I think the thing with science is you dive deep enough into something, right? You just find something deeper that you just keep diving deeper into this rabbit hole, like you said. Like, if you would have asked somebody in the 1400s if the what the world looked like, right? They said he would have been able to drive a boat off the earth, right? And now we know that's not true because people drive boats across ride boats. I don't want to say drive, whatever we want to call it. Don't laugh at me if you're watching this in the future. They take boats all the way across the world in the ocean, right? Nobody falls off the earth. I was in the Navy and we never fell off the earth and we went all the way across the world. So obviously that's not a fact. And here we are in 2024 and the flat earthers are back, right? And they have what they would say is argumentable evidence that substantiates their hypothesis that the earth is flat. So, you know, yeah, in any given moment, depending on the time, whatever epoch you're in at that moment, you could have a whole different view. And a lot of times I think it can be swayed by the masses. So if you got a bunch of people that jump on a bandwagon, a lot of people just like to be part of the crowd. So DYOR is what we say in the crypto space, you know?
And I know so yeah, I think like what I was trying to basically say is that science doesn't necessarily disprove miracles. Like a miracle can actually be part of science, like gravity, again. Science basically considers it a miracle. Like, there's no uh explanation that I'm aware of uh for gravity. It's just like, yes, the more mass something has, the more attractive, uh, the more force there will be between the two bodies, but there's no why for that. So, science kind of it'll take miracles and kind of measure them.
Well, I think you need science, and then you need science and gospel, right? Not gospel, scripture to actually, I think, define truth. Because if you just rely on one or the other, I think you become too polar. So I think I know some Christian sects within the United States that actually believe everything the Bible say is verbatim. Like they're not verbatim. It's like for real. Like there's no hyperbole by any means. So like if it describes like a dragon coming out of the, they believe it's a dragon. Like they don't believe it's like a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm having a stupid attack right now. An analogy,
Right.
So if you go too far polar and you say that everything in it is like 100% truth, well then like it kind of deters people because it doesn't reflect in our day-to-day life that that's 100% truth, right? So in the beginning it says God created the earth, separated heavens from the earth, right? Which the word wasn't heaven; it separated the sky from the earth because heaven was a word created in English, so a concept was created out of it. But God didn't actually separate night and day until the fourth day. So if I had to, I think it was the fourth day, but it definitely wasn't the first day. He actually did not separate night and day. And it says there was night and then there was day, so I don't know what that even means. So if he didn't separate night and day to the fourth day, how long were the first 4 days? Were they millions of years? Were they billions of years? Were they, when he said he evolved man, he created man from dirt, right? Like how long was that process? Like did he plant something in the dirt and the man was formed from that? Or did he just grab, dirt and just the man turn into something? That's what like somebody who takes the Bible literally would say. But I would say I don't know. I think you could probably add a little bit of science in it, and it would explain it better than someone who takes it as a literal explanation, right?
Yeah. And I mean,
So
just to throw a little bit of science in there, like, when you say days, are you talking about human days? I mean, I guess because like we define a day by a revolution of the Earth, which is just uh a sphere in space that just happens to turn at this speed. So I mean, a Martian day is different from a Earth day, and a Jupiter day is different from a Martian day. So yeah.
no, I mean you're onto something. That's a obviously that's a deeper debate. But I guess if we're just referring here to Earth is where we reside, right? And where we've always been. But
Yeah.
if the first 4 days weren't like 24-hour sun, like you said, the revolution of the Earth spinning in a full 360-degree
Because this
circle,
was
right?
God's creation
Ending
of
up
the
right.
universe, right?
Well, it was the creation of the Earth, I guess, is at the moment. Like the creation
Oh.
of the universe was even long before us. Like we don't even know, that story, man.
No,
So if
but
he created the
isn't
universe,
that
how
the
long did
idea of
that?
Genesis? It's not just the Earth when Earth was made, it was when everything was made, right?
Um, I mean, I bet there's debates about it. I
Mm,
take it personally as like the Earth. I take it personally as the Earth because it refers to like us being formed here on Earth, and like maybe in those times when they were writing those books, like the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, like they really didn't have an explanation. They didn't understand the universe. They didn't know there was, uh, a whole galaxy out there, right? So they they kind of described Earth in the manner that they best could with what they saw, and right.
Sure.
And we should get into a discussion about something like that, because I had an interesting discussion with my wife about it, but at a later date.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, but anyway, how long were the first 4 days then? You know, so could man have evolved from, you know, something? And I'm not saying I believe in the theory of evolution, because there's no evidence that suggests that it's truth at all. Because if we came from apes, where are all these skulls and everything at? Right? They don't exist. Where is that? Where we're getting our fossil fuel from? You know, I don't know what everybody says, but you know, like, and then people, you know, they say these theories and they kind of deem them as fact. Well, evolution is a real thing. Like, well, there's evidence of it that suggests it, right? And I'm sure like evolution is like amongst like each species they evolve, because us as a human race, obviously we've evolved. I mean, you can go back and you can look at different species. Like, of course, they evolve with their environment. You know, they'll things like that, right? So, I got my buddy just pulled up too, man. We got another guy, man. He's gonna come in and join this conversation. This is getting good, Raj.
Oh, nice.
Nice. I didn't know it was him right here. But yeah. What do you think, man? What do you think, Raj? I don't know. I just back to the whole conversation of miracles, dude. It's just the miraculous. You can't just say it's extraordinary. You know what I mean? Just my opinion.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of like I think miracles can help with confirming like feelings of faith and stuff like that. And I think um it's kind of up to us to kind of see the miracle or define a miracle in a certain way that you're seeing them around you, or versus maybe a more um, physical, like coming back from the dead type miracle, which
Well,
also
there,
there's documentation of it happening in the world. Like people will die and then or be sick, like terminally sick, and then a church or some congregation of people will pray for them and they'll get better. And it's not like, you know, every time that happens, but these are the type of miracles that are like come back from life miracles, which are pretty, I think it's kind of cool that there's documented cases of this.
yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, man. That's exactly right. I mean, there's plenty of documented cases of miraculous, like what we would call, what almost everybody would say is miraculous, an extraordinary event, right? Um, you know, people being cured of cancer with just no treatment. You know, all of a sudden it just disappears on its own. Um, People being cured of many different ailments. You know, people coming back from the dead, people being resurrected from the dead, I guess we could call it. Um, there are documented cases of this out there, you know, and if you see something like that and you're still like, well, you know, that's just, yeah, sometimes it happens, and it's like nothing will convince you. So if you see something like in front of your eyes, somebody rise from the dead, and you're not like amazed by that, there's nothing that's going to amaze you. You know, you're just always going to negate. So if you're never going to appreciate the small miracles around you, because you can't even appreciate that big one, you know. But we kind of digress from where I was going, you know. But the whole point is for a miracle to happen, it doesn't have to be this, you know, life-altering event. It's sometimes you don't even see it going on; it just happened.
Yeah, no. And another like point I wanted to bring up too is how maybe uh, and this kind of like a fun thought is like, maybe like when you say if you can compare like a cow to a human and like the human drives this car and opens the gate for the cow and closes the gate and locks the cow in. To the cow, the human is kind of doing some miraculous things because the cow has no idea how to drive a car or open and close a gate, maybe. And so this is kind of how it is with us and like maybe a saint or something that does miracles on the daily or, just does miracles, willy-nilly. It's the kind
No,
of um they're actually doing something that's very easy to do, like for them because they understand how things work on a like on that next level or something like that, right? On in terms of like levels of intelligence or something like that. And
yeah,
so for
definitely.
us, it's yeah, go for it.
Well, so like you were saying, my grandma once described to me when she was a young kid. Now she grew up in a small town in Mexico, Jalisco, Tamazula de Gordiano, where she grew up on a ranch. She showered in the river, like she really a simple life, right? She said the first time they had a theater come to her hometown, and let's keep this in mind. This is probably the 1940s, right? They had a theater come to her hometown, and they've never, seen anything like it. So everybody, saw them building this building. And then when they went in there to watch the movie, the theater, it was a movie about planes, and just there was no sound, just literally planes flying on the screen. She said when the planes were flying in the screen, everybody ran out of the theater because they thought they were going to crash into them. Well, we laugh about it now, but at that time they had no knowledge of what it is that they were seeing. So yeah, that's kind of like touching on what you're saying. When a cow looks at us and or when a four-legged creature looks at us and they see us walking on two legs, they're like, wow, that's because walking on two legs is actually really, really difficult, but which is something we normalize.
Yeah.
They're like, look at those things over there walking on, just two legs rather than all four. So yeah, kind of touches on what you're talking about there.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
But yeah, man, I don't know. I had a lot of miracles in my life, I'll say, so you got to appreciate the small ones. I think if you learn to appreciate the small ones, you'll start to see bigger ones.
Hmm.
Gotta reveal them to you. I wonder if there's actually evidence that suggests that. I should ask my buddy here, but he's over here looking at the Facebook or something on his phone. Probably he's a big LeBron James fan. Yeah,
Dude,
he's part of
LeBron
that
James is a
movement.
beast.
Yeah, yeah, he's an effeminate male as well.
Your friend or LeBron James?
LeBron James.
Oh, snap.
He just yeah. He finally got his attention, man. I was talking about him. He finally put his head up. But yeah,
Nice.
yeah, definitely, definitely. That's kind of like my take on it. Like even the Hebrew scripture tells us that the story may not have been what we depict it as today. That the Egyptians were fleeing. I'll give how I've actually heard it. So I wish Stephanie was here because she's obviously into that Hebrew language a lot more than we are. She's our expert on it. So she would be able to confirm or negate what I'm saying. So the story was, the Egyptians were fleeing from, not the Egyptians, the Israelites were fleeing from Egypt, right? And what I've heard is that the language of Hebrew is like a concrete language, right?
Hmm.
So when they said Egypt, it could not have been like a group of people. It would have had to been like Egypts for like the Egyptian army to have been chasing them. So they actually said Egypt. So Egypt can only literally mean like a single entity, like one. It can't mean a group of people. So, and the theory is that Egypt was, it was the spirit of Egypt, right? So in those days, like each country had like a spirit that represented it, and it wasn't actually, chariots and people on with swords that were chasing them. It was like the evil spirit that was, which could probably get into a deeper conversation, that was actually following them. And then when they got to this body of water, whether it be the Red Sea or the Sea of Reeds, or we're talking about the same body of water, the ground dried, right? Not parted. And whether that was, like I said, a wind blowing it, which there's evidence of this happening, wind blowing it and the ground drying for so many miles that they were able to walk across, and does it make it any less miraculous, They were still like leaving where they were enslaved, like, and they crossed an ocean that was dry, and it happened to be like when they got there, like, I don't know, man, even because if it sounds less miraculous, people, oh, well, see, look, you guys are all lying. Well, is it less miraculous? I guess is my point,
Yeah.
not to me.
No, that's a great
So,
point.
like,
And it kind of goes back to a little to um, kind of what we were saying about the physical versus spiritual uh, aspects and the differences between the two, and kind of the idea of something that was kind of cool that Nathan and I were talking about earlier today was like when you read old texts and stuff like that. Um, yes, you can take it literally, but then you can also read into it like spiritually. So instead of like Moses crossing the Red Sea or parting the sea or something, you could think about it as spiritually parting the sea. So it's like this sea of um maybe fear or not being able to cross a barrier, like a, a sort of spiritual barrier, and parting that sea so people can spiritually walk through that spiritual barrier. So if you think of like, if you actually like say spiritual before all these things in the Bible or something and think of it in more of a spiritual way, it actually kind of like, I don't know, it's like another angle you can see things with.
yeah, it's a different angle.
Yeah.
Um, I never, I've never looked at it, things like that. Definitely a different angle. I think it's just worth noting that sometimes miracles aren't as extraordinary, and I've probably mentioned that 24 times today. But if we're telling people that only extraordinary events are miracles, and when they don't happen, they're like, oh, well, where's your God at? Well, what do you mean, where's he at? Like, I mean, you're still here. You made it. Well, I made it because you didn't make it. You didn't do anything because of ourselves. We do everything because like God either put that in us or he blessed us with it. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like I think that's a good kind of way to live kind of in that state of prayer, living in a state of prayer is to see all those small miracles that's around you. Like, I mean, I kind of just randomly thought of a jumping spider. Those things are so small and so quick and kind of like, I don't know, they're really cool insects. And it's like, wow, how is that even possible?
so when I was in the Navy, there was this chaplain, and you just reminded me of it. Like he kind of described this as a miracle, right? How the human body works, right? How the male body works. how the male sexual reproductive system works. He's like, so one person made the comment about you can't he said you can't urinate with an erect penis, right? And this is how the conversation started. He's like, well, I know that's not true because we wake up every morning and whatever, right? So this is the chaplain telling us this, and then he says, well, think about how amazing it is, right? Urine actually, I don't know the legitimacy of this, but this is what he said. Urine actually like kills semen, okay? So before the male climax, there's actually like a liquid that cleanses out the shaft that makes the semen like actually, yeah. Exactly, right? But it actually like flushes you out that your swimmers are actually more active, So how is you're telling me that was a coincidence? Like that was just a coincidence? That's pretty miraculous within itself, like how our bodies work, So that was funny. Ross said pre-cum.
Oh, you're talking about pre-cum.
I know all about that. I was a teenager.
I mean, what's also funny is like how easy it is to like just to get get a boner from like seeing some attractive girl or something like that. Like it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, like really, I like the fact that like that's like it's chemistry involved. That obviously, there's something that you never even touched her, and like somehow you were stimulated that you actually were sexually attracted to that woman in that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that it is pretty fascinating. And these are like taboo topics that a lot of religions won't talk about because it's just real thing. We're not talking like I mean. We could probably talk a little better about it, but I'm not offended by any means in what you're saying, and you're not offended by what I'm saying. So, but yeah, like the way we're designed, like to be attracted to a mate, that's a miracle in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
There's so much you got to be, you have to factor in. You can't just dismiss these small things. And we're describing it the way the human body works. We talked about childbirth. I mean, the act of conception, right? So how is it, both parties can somewhat climax and, this, as a result, a human being is formed,
It's
weird.
What I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like, it really is. It's fucking weird, dude. But it's like, it's like, feels like some alien type shit, but like it's how we're designed, and that's a miracle in my opinion. So when you're looking around and you're expecting something extraordinary, look at the ordinary and really like look into it. You're like, holy shit, this thing is like, the ordinary is extraordinary, probably even more extraordinary than the extraordinary events that we're taught.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like
childbirth, bro.
Huh?
Childbirth. Have you ever seen childbirth, bro? Well,
there was a video
obviously I've seen it, man.
It was nasty.
Yeah, well, I've seen it in person, right? And there's nothing beautiful about it, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm being honest. Like, there's nothing beautiful about a child being born. It's a crime scene. It's like it's just this horrific event, and you see things that you never thought you would see, and you're like, whoa, I didn't know that was a thing that happens during childbirth. And all these gross things happen, and then this alien looking, and little kids really look like aliens. My youngest, she looked like an alien when she came out. She really did. Her head was all elongated, and yeah, but this like little thing aliens. Comes out. Yeah. So, look at that as a miracle, man.
Would you like to close the session out with a prayer? And maybe while we pray, we could do I was watching this time lapse of plants growing, and I thought that was really cool. So I feel like it kind of goes into the miracle motif a little bit. So do you want to should I play that while we pray our way out of this session? I'm gonna do it.
Sure, definitely. I like the I like the MC Hammer and Pray.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to make that our
That's
intro.
why
Or
we're gonna make
we also
that.
got to
We'll
make
do
our
it.
own intro. Wait, Farm on the Valley.
Yeah,
That's not the one I wanted.
what the hell are
What
you
is
looking at,
Farm on the
Raj? Come
Valley?
on, man.
You want to play?
This dude, no, this dude is playing Facebook games on while we're talking about miracles. Farmville, he's Farmville while we're talking about miracles, man.
Oh, dude, leave me alone. Okay. Um,
Here we go. All right, go ahead. Close us out, Raj. I want to hear you
okay,
this week.
All right, let's do it. Dear God, thank you for blessing us with many miracles every day that keep the human race going. Honestly, I don't understand how we're all alive right now. It seems like we would have destroyed ourselves a long time ago, but you seem to keep things going for us. So thank you for that. Thank you, God, for allowing really interesting and fun to explore conversation with Matthew. And thank you, God, for all the viewers who are watching this podcast. And may you bless everyone with spiritual light and allow our hearts to be cleansed and reflect your light, God. Thank you.
Jesus' name,